had like a proper 2 hours of pain.
I moved from being completely discouraged to being completely assured.
On our way to Djibouti, we got arrested.
It's not common for Africans like us to be touring in our own continent. But I just want to encourage Africans to tour more locally, because you know it will help demystify this thing.
I was really excited, first of all. I didn't know what to expect when I rode into Nairobi Chapel, because we had bikers who were coming to escort us, and I particularly did not join any WhatsApp group where all the bikers were in, because I knew it would be overwhelming. So when I got to church and saw the number of bikers who were there just to support us and to escort us to the different stops, I mean, I was like, wow. Having my sister there and my nephew, my family support, that was really awesome.
Then the flag off happened, we rode out, and even on Thika Road, as we were riding, it was still, you know, this is happening. We're not turning back, we're going ahead. Made it all the way to Marsabit. The day after, we had a small team that joined us on our way to Moyale. And we got to a place just before Moyale, about 100, 200 kilometers before Moyale. There was a straight road. Immediately, the super bikers said, guys, we can't leave this road like this. They asked us if we could go to the side of the road and give them an opportunity to max out their bikes. It spiced up the day because it gave us entertainment. We stopped for a water break, then we were seated on either side of the road, and guys pass us at 260 kph. You know, you could hear it, you could feel it, and with the wind, it was very exciting. Edu, the chef, I mean, big up to you and the team.
We told ourselves to be stopping every 100 kilometers, whether it's to drink some water or just to stretch.
You know, you've been seeing Moyale 800, then now Moyale 15, Moyale 5. We're like, yeah, we're actually getting out of Kenya. We got there early, like 1:30 p.m. to the Moyale border post. We were certain. We had sent our documents in advance. We had a letter from the ambassador, Ethiopian ambassador to Kenya. We were like, we are ready to cross. We had everything that we needed to cross. Then we got to the border, and the customs guy, you know, asked us for our documents, and he looked at the documents, and then he told us, we need to send these documents to Addis so that Addis verifies and gives us a go-ahead for you guys to cross. They take our lunch break between 1 and 2:30. Yeah, so we had to chill, and we're like, no, it's understandable. I mean, you know, so we waited after lunch. Now the guy gives us the feedback, and we're sitting there 2:30, 3:30, 4:30. 2 hours after, we went to the guy and said, has Adi said anything? And the guy says, no, we have to wait. They close office at 4:30. So we start seeing customs officials leaving. Them, they're going home. These two guys sat there and they said, don't worry, we'll be patient and we'll wait for it, you know. I kid you not, by 5:30, 6, everybody had left. It was these two gentlemen that were still there. And as we just knew, we were sunk. This is a Friday. If they close, we'd have to be in Moyale till Monday. And we started processing. For reality check is here. We may be here till Monday because we can't cross if we don't have that feedback. I didn't know what kind of a bureaucratic system they had. Unless word comes from above, there's no way you guys are crossing. So these guys, I kid you not, these customs officials sacrificed. They sacrificed and they said, we'll make sure we are here until you're done. I kid you not, the feedback came at 6:30. That's when the message came. Inside, we are inside a one-stop border post that doesn't have power. As in, so it has power to power the, you know, computers, etc., but there are no lights. So we're putting on our phones so that the guy can type the document that we need, the letter that we need, so that we can actually cross. The guy spent an hour typing every single person's letter with all the details, putting our details in the system, checking there's something called a carnet de passage, the passport for the motorcycle, checking the details. He went to our bikes, checked our engine number, etc., everything. And he spent the whole time, did the paperwork. It's about going to 7 when the letters now come out and they tell us you can cross. We were so relieved. It's dark now. So the guy closes office, gives us our letters, and he takes off. As we go down to our bikes, put on our gear, put the letters nicely. This letter is valuable. It took us 5 hours to get this letter out. So we put the letter inside, and yeah, we're ready to take off. So we take off and we go to the gate. The border post has been closed. They close at 6. No one from Kenya goes across. No one from Ethiopia comes across. The official tells us, where are you guys going? There's no way you can leave.
So we had to explain ourselves, we had to open our documents again, show our documents, and tell him, you know, this is the reason we're late, we're sorry, you know, apologizing and everything. So he had to call these guys again just to ensure that they have, you know, they've released us so we can leave. And once that was confirmed, now we were able to ride into our hotel. And the first thing upon entering is the side of the road that they drive on. So here in Kenya, we drive on the left. In Ethiopia, they drive on the right. So we had to adjust to that automatically. We kind of kept forgetting that, and we were reminded because the other traffic was coming the different directions. So they were like, okay, go to the hotel. We had a good meal, we ate. At least me, I've lived in Ethiopia before. I've lived and worked in Ethiopia before in 2015, doing humanitarian work. So I was accustomed to the food and the weather and the people and the culture. So for me, it wasn't a very big shock. I just haven't entered Ethiopia through Moyale or on road. So it was interesting for me to go back. It was nostalgic as well.
That night and the next day, we received probably our first impressions of Ethiopia and reality check. For we are now in Ethiopia. I think the thing that hit me hard first was food. The food there, everything is Ethiopian traditional food. You can't get, you know, anything beyond that. It's very, you know, it's very customary and very localized to Ethiopia. So you have to eat an Ethiopian dish. So my first orientation was orienting myself with Ethiopian dishes.
One thing that really affected me and I think the whole crew was the language barrier.
Every stop you were making, I found myself using my little Amharic that I knew, and it would get us by, you know, whether it's for greetings or asking for something or just saying thank you. And that really made a very big difference because they were super excited. What we definitely did not expect was a fuel shortage.
There's diesel, but when you want petrol, petrol is more sold in the black market than in the mainstream fuel stations. So you go to a fuel station and it feels like a ghost town. Because there's nobody. Nobody at the tanks, there's nobody. And on the side of the road, you're seeing two bottles that have, you know, fuel. And we quickly realized here, system ni tofauti. So we were a bit uncomfortable getting a bottle to fuel, you know, your bike. But we had to quickly get used to it.
So in Ethiopia, they don't have very many private cars apart from the big cities like Addis Ababa and Hawassa. So we didn't see any private cars apart from just NGO cars and buses, and that was it. People are just on like donkeys and horse carts and just walking. The scenery was super beautiful, had a great time. Everywhere we went, the main food, the way in Kenya we eat ugali, the main food in Ethiopia is injera, so that's the only food we're getting everywhere we went.
The first impression was how many barriers we had to cross. As in, it's a federal state, so there are different regions. Each region has its own security, etc. So when we left Moyale, the first thing we found was a barrier with full armed security. Put your bikes on the side. Everything was checked. Our bikes were stripped. They asked us so many questions about what we're carrying, where we're going, etc. Spend 30 minutes just doing clearance. We get on the road and we continue, another barrier. As in, out of nowhere, you're approaching a town, you see a string across the road. As in, there's a rope across the road. And on either side, there's an army officer. So you have to be chonjo, because you can go riding fast and you ride through a string and you just get shot at for, you know, no reason.
And also just people being fascinated because they hadn't seen such big bikes like those. Big bikes, like the ones we had, are only for like the presidential escort. And so they were wondering, like, who are you guys, you know?
Unfortunately, one of our, you know, friends got an accident. One of our colleagues. 2 or 3 bikes ahead of me, and you're riding and then suddenly you see someone lying on the road. The bike is in the ditch. It's one of the most scary experiences for anyone riding in a group.
I just remember having a lapse of I didn't know what happened, and the next memory I have is myself rolling. I'm like, what just happened? For a minute, honestly, I thought I died, because I remember I stepped on something, then I was thrown off the road. My bike hit a post, and then it went into a ditch, and then I was thrown back on the road, and then I rolled for a minute. What I remember is just thinking in that moment for like, I think I've been rolling for a while, like, wow, why am I rolling? So I removed my hand and stopped. So by the time I was stopping, between the distance where my bike was and where I was like 110 meters. Okay, I don't know like what meters, but it was like a distance. So everyone else had stopped and had come to where I was. I just remember saying, okay, stand up. I'm like, okay, I'm standing. I think I'm not yet dead. Yeah, but it was so painful when my hand was really in pain, and my body was in so much shock. Like, what just happened? Like, we were literally 20 kilometers away from where we were supposed to stop. And yeah, I think pain and disappointment in terms of what just happened. Like, did I just get an accident, and what will that look like for the next couple of days? That was what was in my mind in that moment. So I rolled. What I remember is then there was a first aid. I hadn't noticed that I had lost my finger at that point. So I didn't even look at my bike, then went to the hospital and everything. But I think the repercussions were very glad that no bone of mine was broken or anything. The most impact was on my hand, and I had to come back for medical care. So I got a bruise here, which was it major? I don't know. Okay, compared to the impact on the finger, I think the finger was more. So it was the impact here and on the finger. And also my bike had sustained quite a bit of damage on my gear, and yeah, still following up with insurance and everything. But yes, physically, it's just the finger and the hand. I think the most part of it is emotional.
Luckily, there was an NGO car, one of the only few private cars that we saw actually passed by, and we stopped him and we asked him if he can help us to go to the nearest clinic, which was about 20 kilometers away. So now Blix is in the car. I left Leo and Reverend Nick trying to of course now get her bike out of the ditch. So many guys had come by then, and just trying to collect all her stuff to make sure everything was okay, because the fuel leaked from her bike, so they had to suck all the fuel out, drain the fuel out, and also from my extra fuel tank they had to remove that fuel as well, so the bike would be lighter to put it on the truck, but the truck wasn't there yet. So so Rev Nick told me that Havana, you will have to soldier up. Blix is going to be in this car, you are going to have to get back on your bike and you follow this car. So I was like, okay, because we can't just let her go by herself, and I can't get in the car because then I have to somehow come back with, to get my bike. So I geared up and everything, and I rode behind these guys for like 20 kilometers, and we went to a clinic that was there. It was the only clinic in that town. So yeah, so it was a very rocky road there. And by the moment I was actually getting into the hospital, there's a big rock and sand, rock and sands, man. Anyways, I just fell, bloof, up to hospitali. I fell. I know. Wow, that was my first fall. I fell right there, and they looked at me and they're like, wow, we can't have two patients, eh? So they helped me pick up the bike again, and then I had to go and park it somewhere like just in front of a bush. And I went again and I pitted with the bush. I fell again for the second time. I think I was anxious, I was nervous, I was terrified, I was confused, and I was just trying to keep myself together for Blix. So we get to the clinic, and they look at her and they wanted to open the bandage, and Blix said, you can't touch me if you're not going to give me any painkillers, because she's in so much pain. She's still screaming and crying. So I was trying to calm her down, and they gave her tramadol, but they injected her, and they said it's going to take 30 minutes to set in. I'm like, 30 minutes, dude? She's in pain, man. Like, can you give us something instant now? She's like, we're a small clinic, we don't have anything. So I'm like, what do you want us to do? It's like, we'll have to refer you to the referral hospital. I'm like, how does this happen? And this kind lady, bless her soul, she was so patient with us, and she spoke a bit of English. I'm mixing my Amharic, my English, and she wrote us like a referral to the bigger referral hospital now, which was now like another 30 kilometers away.
So I had like a proper 2 hours of pain. I remember just calling someone at home, just being like, I'm in so much pain, I'm gonna die. But I don't think I've ever experienced so much pain in my life.
For me, it was a quick reality check. For this thing is dangerous, eh? This thing is not straightforward. This thing has valleys, and the valleys have come too soon, and they've come too deep. Let me take you back 2 steps. Before we got to Ethiopia, there is a Kenyan who works in a place called Bulehora in Ethiopia that contacted me on Facebook. and said, you guys are coming through my town. Could I just say hi? Could I just meet you guys? I follow you guys. It's a random Kenyan that works in Ethiopia. And I could have ignored the message, but I didn't. I sent him my number, and he sent me his number, and we started chatting and told him as soon as we get to Bulehora, we'll say hi to you. In fact, he had invited us for breakfast. The reason we left Moyale early, we're trying to make it to Bulehora because this guy had organized breakfast for us with him before we continue. And guess what? This accident happened 30 kilometers before Bulehora. This guy took time, left Bulehora, came to where we were, the health center, organized so that Blixen can be taken to the main hospital in Bulehora. He took us through the entire treatment process, personally took us through the entire treatment process. He personally paid for the costs of our initial medication a stranger, okay, in Bulehora.
Yeah, actually, I'm very grateful for that hospital because I'm in so much pain. I don't know what's happening. So the first thing that they did was they just looked at my wound and said, this is the wound that is making you cry that much. But they took me into another room. They did a full body x-ray, and then they said there was no bone that was broken. I think that is the point that they realized that my finger had been hurt so much. So they took me another place, then they administered anesthesia on my hand and on my finger. And at that point, now where I couldn't feel the pain on my body, I was like, unbelievable. Like, it can't happen that this trip is gonna end here.
So he's Bernard. He came with a guy called Bonaya. Bonaya was the former member of parliament for Bulehora. And they worked together because he's an agronomist in the agriculture industry there, doing macadamia. So Bernard went out of his way, got his friend who went out of his way, took us to a place where we could stay after the medical treatment. They had organized a place for us to stay. They had organized everything in the hospital. The same person the next day offered to take Blixen 4 hours away to the closest airport so that she can fly to Addis Ababa and be able to fly all the way to Kenya.
I think it only hit me when I was at the airport for like, this is not how I had planned to go back home. Yeah, I had a breakdown at the airport, and everyone was, just before we boarded, everyone is like, are you okay? Like, have you just gotten the accident? Now. Like, why are you crying this much?
That was a very shocking experience for everyone, for the whole team. But luckily, very luckily, she didn't have severe injuries, so we are grateful for that. And yeah, he just maybe it shows what to expect on the road. So anything can happen to anyone, anytime.
So that was the unfortunate accident so far, but I'm happy that she's doing really well.
And for me, the way all these things fitted together and all these pieces fitted together, it gave me one of the greatest assurances in this trip, that God has already gone before us, and He has sorted everything that needs to be sorted, and He's provided Bernards and Bonayas all the way in this trip. So I moved from being completely discouraged to being completely assured. The team, you could see, the team was deflated, completely deflated. It's one of the most boring portions of this trip for me because, you know, we have intercoms, you know, our communication devices, and we keep cracking jokes while we're riding to keep the ride spiced up. When I see something, I crack a joke. You guys, do you see, you know, that? Or when we see a place that looks like Naivasha, we're like, hey, that's Kikope right there. Or, you know, just trying to keep ourselves going. That was a quiet ride. The guys hardly spoke the whole time till Addis. And then when we were being told about getting into Addis, we were told about the Addis Expressway. I mean, they have an expressway like ours here in Kenya. And the guy who told us about it told us, in fact, you can get on the expressway, you'll get to Addis quicker, you'll get to Addis in time because, you know, it will shorten your trip by half, etc. So we get on the expressway and we get to, you know, the expressway entrance, and the guy tells us no bikes are allowed in the expressway, please stand back. Us guys are like, but we're told they're allowed, you know. The guy told us stand back. So we turned back, and the road we got into, I kid you not, that was the longest, hardest road. It had potholes, it had, I mean, it what would have taken us an hour took us 3.5 hours to make it into Addis. We got into Addis at night. That's what we didn't want. This is a capital city. As bikers, you don't want to ride in, and you don't want to ride in at night. I mean, it's an unfamiliar territory. So it was very uncomfortable getting into Addis. It was very discouraging because everything we thought would work did not quite work in that sense. So, but guess what? We had a surprise waiting for us in Addis. There's another Kenyan. Again, big up to Kenyans. Kenyans out there are just doing amazing things. There's a lady called Grace in Addis Ababa. A Kenyan lady who decided this group has been discouraged. This group needs to be treated. So Grace booked for us the Addis Hilton Hotel for us to stay. A place we never thought we could ever stay. She booked for us to stay there. So she called us and said, please find us at the Hilton. So we're riding into the Hilton, and guess what? The Kenyan ambassador to Ethiopia has waited 3.5 hours for us.
She had arranged for us to go and have dinner at this restaurant called the Marcus restaurant in Addis Ababa. So Chef Marcus was actually Obama's chef during his inauguration. So so we met a Kenyan chef there called Chef Odi, and he gave us a taste of home.
We ate ugali that was prepared for us at the Kenyan embassy, a Kenyan meal, kienyeji, chicken. We had mboga za kienyeji. It was just amazing.
Yeah, he surprised us as well again by footing our bill when we're ready to pay for a bill. He's like, no, this is on the house, you know.
We leave Addis, and we got our first, not first puncture, but our first 2 punctures as we're leaving Addis. So our exit was delayed because of that. Had to sort it out, took another 3 hours or so. Then took off. We were trying to make it as far away as possible, but we couldn't make it as far. We went to a town called Awash. And it was getting to nightfall. It was, getting late. So we had to, settle in. So we are sure, in this town we'll get accommodation. We go to the first place, no accommodation. Second place, no accommodation. Third place, and then we started thinking, is it us or is this Tao? So we got a guy who was willing to help us, and he told us, you know what, guys, the regional commissioner is here. They're doing a big conference in this town, and all the hotel rooms are booked. So we were getting ready to sleep in a petrol station or something, as in. Then finally he found for us 2 rooms. Then later we found another 2 rooms where we could be able to stay. It was an interesting twist of events. The next morning, we leave Awash, and we wanted to reach a town called Semera. It's in the northern part. It was going to be our base for a lot of activities we wanted in the northern part of Ethiopia. And that morning we left early because this town was not really big. It was small. It was a town that doesn't wake up too early. We couldn't have breakfast, and guys were hungry. And we just decided, let's push it and let's have breakfast in an hour or 2. We didn't bother to check, we tried to put in the GPS coordinates of the place we were going. It was not working. So we just figured this is the right road. So we took off on the right road. And we're on the right road, but there's a there's a junction that we needed to take a left so that we can get the highway all the way to Semera. Because it's early in the morning, because we're hungry, because we're looking forward to this breakfast stop, none of us were really looking out for this junction. So we found ourselves 100+ kilometers away from the junction. When we finally stopped, we were hungry, and we decided now this town, I remember the town, it's called Shiro. Yeah, so we stopped at this town, and as we are, we smelled chapos. That's why we stopped. We smelled some nice chapos. And we parked our bikes and said, Yani, there are chapos in Ethiopia. So we parked our bikes and we ordered chapos and eggs for breakfast. While we're seated, we're checking our GPS to see now where we realized we are like 100 k's away from the junction that we should have been. It was so discouraging. So we quickly looked at each other, and they look at each other for whose fault was this? And everybody was looking at me because I was responsible to be able to check the GPS coordinates. So my head was hung, to be honest. I felt I'd let the team down, and I'd subjected the team to a very bad detour in that sense. We were lost, basically. We were off track. Yeah, so that was discouraging. But the Chapos who did it, the Chapos encouraged us. So that day we did about 800 kilometers. We got to Semera late in the evening. Luckily our hotel, got a nice place to stay and rest. We were particularly looking forward to the day after, because that's when we were supposed to tour the Danakil Depression. They say the Danakil Depression is the hottest place on earth. So they have this experience, because you're so far away from the grid, they have this experience where you sleep facing the stars on, just a flat bed, because it's hot. It's a hot place. You don't want to stay indoors, etc. So they had us, on flat beds and just covering yourself like with a Masai shuka. And it was amazing. And
then we slept under the night sky at night, which was super interesting. And then the next day now we went to the Danakil Depression. Yeah, we watched the sunrise in the morning by a beautiful salt. It's a salt lake as well, right? Yeah, it's a salt lake. It's pure salt. So the reflection is amazing when the sun is coming out.
It's 120 meters below sea level. Afdera, Lake Afdera, that's the lake. So, like the Dead Sea, when you're lying down, you just basically float. It was exciting, and it's salty, very salty, and that was exciting. It was an exciting feature there. But my highlight was Mount Ertale, that mountain that erupts. It was very exciting.
Yeah, that was Semera, because there we couldn't go with our bikes because it was too hot, plus with the salt and everything. So we had a tour guide. So he did a wonderful job. We really enjoyed that. And then now from Semera, we're planning to head back to, we were meant to go to Djibouti from Semera. Now we've done that.
So got a Bali. On our way to Djibouti, we got arrested. I think the language barrier caused all that, because they can't talk to us in any other language. We can't hear what they're saying. So the back and forth got us in some trouble. So we had to go back to the police station, make calls. That took hours. We
leave, the hotel where we're staying, and as we take the turn to get onto the highway, there is a cop that was standing, a traffic police officer that was standing by the roadside, and he was waving, according to our lead rider, okay? She's called Havana. So Havana talks to us on the intercom and said, hey, we are celebs, that cop is waving at us, and he's even blowing a whistle.
He blew the whistle again, and I literally even stood up on the bike and I waved at him, because I thought he's saluting us, all the other cops had been saluting us before, so I thought he also got the memo.
So us guys are like, wow, he's blowing a whistle and he's waving at us. So what we didn't know, in Ethiopia, when a traffic cop blows a whistle, it means you stop and stop immediately. So us guys are thinking, Uko, we are celebs as we are riding. So we ride a kilometer ahead, and as we're approaching the barrier, this is the main barrier out of the town, there is a barricade at the barrier, and we are stopped by security officers. We passed this guy. See, he's our fan. Sindio, see, he's our fan. So we passed and we have gone. There is a barricade, and we are stopped with, acrimoniously, we are stopped. Now, Ubaya, get off your bikes. Do you want what? Nini. Us guys are wondering, guys, relax. Hatuna Ubaya. Then behind us, that same traffic cop comes flying with a tuk-tuk. And then he points at his hat and he says, do you have traffic policemen in your country? And we're like, yeah. He's like, I am a traffic policeman. When I say stop, you stop. So us guys are wondering, when did that happen? So at this time, we're still floating.
So I'm like, all right, I'm sorry. I told you to stop. I'm like, when? I told you. I'm like, when? I was blowing your whistle. I'm like, oh, that's what that means. I'm sorry. I thought you were saying hi, So he was already pissed off. So he got in the tuk-tuk with the other, go to the hotel. We had a good meal. We ate, at least me, I've lived in Ethiopia before. I've lived and worked in Ethiopia before in 2015, doing humanitarian work. So I was accustomed to the food and the weather and the people and the culture. So for me, it wasn't a very big shock. I just haven't entered Ethiopia through Moyale or on road. So it was interesting for me to go back. It was nostalgic as well. Just riding back into a country I worked in like 9 years ago. Like border post guy, they got on a tuk-tuk and told us to follow them 3 kilometers away. So we got back on our bikes. He still has our passports. So we got on our bikes and now we had to go to the police station, which was not 3 kilometers, more like 5 kilometers. So he lied. But anyways, once again, we get to the police station. There's what? There's rocks and there's sand. Who fell? Havana fell. Of course. How dramatic, you know. And so the police officers looked at me and they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. So they helped me. We lifted the bike up and we were good. And we were given a room where we start waiting now for the head of the police station to come.
So what we realized is now we're in a different region. That region was not informed that we're coming. They don't have information about our coming. So they have to first get information from all the other places we've come through. Then second, the bikes we're riding, they said, even the police bikes there don't ride bikes like this. So who are you guys? So we were quickly suspicious to them. And then we had not helped because we didn't stop when the guy told us to. So we are already defiant, suspicious, I mean, just filling the blanks. So we sat there and they tried, I mean, after about 2 or 3 hours, I asked them, is there a problem? They said, no, wait. That's the only thing we could hear, wait. We sat there for 4 hours. When I realized this is getting a bit challenging, we called someone who was helping us in Ethiopia, and he called the regional tourist commissioner. And it's only when that commissioner came to the police station that we got released. It took him about an hour. He came, he talked to them. Finally, we were given back our passports 5 hours after. What we didn't know was what lay ahead. This was kindergarten compared to what lay ahead for us. It's not common for Africans like us to be touring in our own continent. If we were, if we looked like the traditional tourists and have come from outside Africa and coming to tour, it would have made more sense. But because we are Africans, this is weird. There's every reason to suspect our activities. And we found ourselves one incident after the other as an item of greatest suspicion on this particular trip. And I just want to encourage Africans to tour more locally, because you know it will help demystify this thing. We confidently get to the border and we're sure we're going in because we have e-visas. So it's not like we're asking for visas. We already had gotten the visas in Nairobi at the embassy. But when we get to the border, we realize first, very, very quickly, this is a frontier border. It doesn't have the facilities of a border. In fact, the person who was dealing with us, we were thinking he's a clearance person before we actually go to the immigration officers. But he was actually the immigration officer himself. He took such a long time to check our documents first. And then finally, he had to call somebody. And it took such a long time to get the information he had received from us to this person and to get feedback from this person back to us. He was taking pictures of our, visas. He was taking pictures of our passports and sending them to this person. That person checks and verifies, sends them back. So we sat and did a back and forth for probably 3 hours waiting. We talked to the person asked to talk to us. And the big thing is, where are you going? What are you going to do? I mean, again, that's suspicion. Because he explained who we are. These are, these are 4 people on motorcycles entering. I mean, you're not even driving. I mean, what are you guys coming here to do? So there was that element. And then at the end, the person just told us, there's no way we can verify your e-visas. So we asked them why. Said, this border doesn't have the equipment that we need to verify the e-visa. It was a very busy border. It's actually the transit point between Djibouti and Ethiopia. Trucks coming in and out, truck drivers. So they'd come give out their Comesa insurance and their IDs, and they'd go. But I did not see in 3.5 hours one person producing a passport. Because on that border, passports don't look like they're an item of transaction. So I think, again, us producing passports, there's nothing to, there's no way to read those passports, to interpret those passports. So I think we probably chose the wrong border post. So we looked for a vehicle that we quickly hired to take us back to Ethiopia. We tried to make it back to Ethiopia before they close the immigration so that they can cancel their stamping us out so that we are legally back into Ethiopia. By God's grace, we got it there in time. So they cancelled our, exit, and then we went running to the customs office, hoping they have not locked because our bikes were there. They were being held at customs because we hadn't cleared in. Again, luckily, they were still there, and we were able to get our bikes. And we were so hungry. We had not eaten lunch because we were at the cop station, and we had not eaten dinner because we were at the border post. Guys were starving. I kid you not, went to the closest kibanda, and they had matumbo. They call it their stomachs. It was Leo's favorite meal. So we sat there for about, again, the clearance took about an hour and a half. So we were eating at 10. We came back to our bikes at around 10:30, 10:45. We rode at night back to a town called Semera because we couldn't get accommodation where we were. We did a 1 and a half hour ride at night. So we got back to Semera at midnight, tired. What we thought was an unfortunate incident actually turned out to be a blessing, because the next morning we got a phone call from the Kenyan embassy in Hargeisa, which is the next place. After Djibouti, we were supposed to get into Somaliland. And they tell us, please do not come. So we asked them why. They're like, there's some new military activity within Somaliland that makes it completely unsafe for you to come in. So they heavily advise that we don't enter. So right there again, the very things I was mentioning, how God just goes ahead of you and stops something before you get into harm's way. So they quickly told us, please do not come. It is not safe right now. Please turn back. We'll advise you when it's actually safe. So it made sense. We decided, since we had a week ahead of us, that we did not go into Djibouti, did not go into Somaliland. The only option after Djibouti and Somaliland was to go home. So we decided, instead of going home straight, one of the most famous biker documentaries is Long Way Down, and Long Way Around. So we said, let's take the long way around to get home. So we decided, it wasn't part of our plan originally. We decided to pass by a very iconic part of Ethiopia, in the northern part of Ethiopia, called Lalibela, that has rock-hewn churches, 4th century churches that are historic monuments in the African continent.
We did a tour of all the churches in Lalibela, and just a history of the church, the Orthodox Church, and yeah, that was very interesting.
It became a kind of a consolation tour. Like, let's go through there on our way home. And then after that, we rode again through Addis. And at that point, we just wanted to ride home. We wanted to, make it back home to have some time with our families before the next leg. On our way back, by the way, when we got to Moyale, the same customs officer that dealt with us was there. We got to appreciate him and thank him, for taking us in. There's a Kenyan in Moyale who took care of Blixen's bike at his house in Moyale. We got to appreciate him also. There are many people along the way that were selfless, and they really sacrificed for us.
I've been the president of the bikers in the country, the Private Bikers Association. So my strength is mobilizing. And for me, my understanding about around Africa, where we are riding, is so that we create awareness about, so that people can ask, at around Africa, on what? On a motorcycle, like not in a car, not in a jet, not in a, but motorcycle. So, like, why are these guys doing this? So, in answering that, then we tell them we're doing this for the endowment fund. The emotional part was when we did the border sign. We are leaving Kenya, and I saw them leave. It was very hot. And then at the border, it was not easy. The customs guy had not been informed. They expected back for the visas, for the leg 2. So I was feeling for them. You've done everything you need to do, but the guy at the border just says, why are you in a hurry? For them, they are. So I think for me, when I saw that experience, it just reminded me of experiences I've had before. I remember last year, I rode from South Africa, and in Zambia, I spent 7 hours at the border. So I was told to get there by midday. I got there, and up to 8 p.m., I was still seated in the benches, slept there. You're tired. it's so exhausting. You have all the papers, you have an agent. So yeah, so for me, it was just a preparation for me to see them off. And I felt like I should have been there. But I was happy because staying back here, I was more helpful when Blixen accident happened, because I was involved in receiving the bike in Kenya, ensuring it gets to Nairobi, ensuring that everything goes well when they're in Ethiopia. Adventure teaches you to lose control. I think the biggest struggle we have is control of things, and I think for me that's why I do adventure, where you become like weightless, like it's where the bike takes you. It's what happens. You've no control. First, when I saw them go, I remembered I had some tools that they are forgotten, which was so key. Leo forgot a nut, that very special nut that opens the door, and I had given it to him, but forgot to pick it at the border. So my mind was like, oh, if something happens, and actually it happened. They got a puncture and there is no way to remove that tire. Luckily, they figured out, which is adventure. But as I saw them go, for me it was reality. I've been preparing for this trip from 2017. When we did the Around Africa, we did the 47 counties, we took a break. So I bought a bike, and so for me it was like a dream, like wow, they are out, it's happening. Like so I was like, oh, let me take time now and prepare, because next if they come back, the thing is we are on. We are not like going to change our minds. We are not stopping. We are on. The other lesson that's crucial I understood is having network and people on the road everywhere we go would be very, very key. And since I work with most African bikers and leaders, I intentionally began to reconnect with them, because the person who helped us in Moyale, I met him the day that I was in Moyale. A friend of mine called. He works in the law court and just told me, there's a friend of mine, he's coming to just say hi because we have a common friend. So he said hi, and when Blixen incident happened, is that person who actually got the bike, and helped keep the bike for a week safely as we figured out how to get it over the Christmas period. As a person, I've kept growing in my travels. My first international trip was in 2015 when I did Rwanda, Congo, and Burundi. And then I didn't have like gadgets, I didn't have apps. But today we have many apps. So I have apps which I have some bought, which they are offline maps, which are able to navigate even if we have no internet. Because when you cross borders, the first thing is, you buy a SIM card, you change money. It's like a drill you do in every border. So sometimes you may not get, you may have challenges and you need to see the direction. So I have at least 3 apps, 2 phones with 3 apps for navigation. I also have apps that tell me about where we are. They show the attraction points, they show police, they show medic. I have sat down and with the route we have, I have mapped out all the places that go to in case this happens. So for me, that's a proper preparation, because I can actually visualize, like in Malawi, what food they eat, where not to eat, their nightlife, their day life, their mechanic. Like an app like Eye of Alanda is very good. It shows you all the mechanics around that area, all the embassies around an area. So such apps I've prepared with basically digitally with information. I've also physically I've been working out. Our bikes are heavy, and sitting on a seat of a bike for 1 day, it's okay. 2 days, 20 days, 30 days just sitting, sometimes you get so tired, and especially your back. Yeah, so I've been doing stretches, and I'll be doing stretches. Yeah, then mentally, we don't just throttle the bike, just bob, like we we listen to music. It's so much fun. Like I have books, I listen to a lot of books, I listen to podcasts. So I have a playlist for every country. On my Spotify, I have books. I have a few targets. By the time I'm back, I'm able to. So I've also got some camping gear. I'm hopeful we'll get accommodation every place, but there are places where they have camping facilities that are very good. So especially on my way back from Namibia, because I'll be alone, I hope to enjoy the campsites and basically, if I'm not able to get the place I've planned, so now it's a bit easier to plan for accommodation, even if you don't have someone in every place. There are apps like booking.com that I'm not promoting, but it's what we use and we've been using. You're able to get a place to spend nearest anywhere you stop. So the pressure is a bit less. I've also talked to agents in these countries because I've passed through them. So I've told them I'm coming. I've talked to friends through this. So at least friends are able to tell us which places are secure, which places are not. Like recently we changed our route. We were to go to Mozambique. We hosted the president of the Mozambique bikers, and we were hopeful that we would actually pass by. But after the elections, there's been a lot of post-election violence. Yeah, so having friends in those countries help us be able to know which routes are safe, which routes are not, and which routes are what we see on the map, the ideal versus the real on the ground. You have to do that, but allow some level of adventure. Yeah, but I said again, I found if you sort out the visas issues in Africa, still you don't know how different military and police different countries treat you. So I think the adventure is I have a program I run called Journey Not Destination, so that life is not in the destination, because sometimes it's actually life is in the journey. Like what that cop you meet, don't see them like wasting your time. See it as a moment to interact with the Zambian police and get to know them. If you get arrested, like my colleagues who are experience the prison or in Ethiopia, no one would, if you told them they would get to a prison, they wouldn't say, yeah. So I don't know even right now, you've done everything, but we are very open. Yeah, so if you see me in jail, just like give me a biker sign and tell me it's gonna be cool, and I'll be happy in every situation.
My active role in Leg 1 was quite limited because, one, I was not riding, but I would say I was a chief cheerleader. So trying to find out where they were every day, to some point where Mbudia told me to shut up and take a chill pill. If I had taken Leg 1, then I would have to reduce the time I dedicate to Leg 2 and 3. Yeah, so I was very clear from day one that I was not going to be able to do Leg 1. But I also feel that all things remaining constant, Leg 1 is the easiest to get to at a later date. So I put it in my list that that's something I will do. And hopefully we can do it all together, because there's unfinished business with Leg 1. Where I felt maybe I could have played a role is after Blixen's accident. Nick called me. We were trying to coordinate how she was going to get back, and I going to the airport, being at the hospital on the day she arrived, and getting her all the way until she was admitted. So I think that was the biggest role, but most of it was just trying to understand how are things going, sharing, answering questions from everyone else who saw me, because I would walk around and people say, bado uko hapa. So I would have to keep explaining, those guys have reached, they're in Ethiopia, they're doing this, and just trying, and also help them do a bit of their scripts, whatever they were writing online, because they didn't have a lot of time. So Nick would send me very long WhatsApps, and I would try and clean them up before he could post. So just trying to be a part of the team without physically being there. And spent a lot of time feeling jealous. I think there's been a bit more better prep. We have been contacting people on the ground. Pastor Sam has a good network of people, so we are finding out where changing from moving through Mozambique because of what's going on in that area to changing the route because we don't want to take an extra risk. So there's been better preparation from where I sit. And then trying to pack, trying to figure out what do I need, what don't I need. At the end of the day of a ride, what I would like to be putting out is a call to action, but not reading emails from work. What we are doing is actually significant in our own lives and even more significant than the lives of those who we are going to assist. So we don't take it for granted that people are taking their time, they're taking their resources to support what we are doing and to support the LOGOS Endowment Fund. For me, it's just a mountain of gratitude for all those who have supported us in any which way. I mean, the people who I've met on the streets and are just saying what you guys are doing is amazing. Even those ones who have asked me, what are you still doing here? Yeah. So I cannot thank them enough, and just to keep saying, keep bringing it. Yeah, that their energy is going to drive us.
Second leg is quite straightforward. There are no visa requirements from here to South Africa, so it's going to be an easy ride, hopefully, going down. Third and fourth leg is where we'll have similar challenges because there are a lot of visas towards North and West Africa. Most of the countries require visas, and I think we will encounter the same problems as Djibouti, but now we are getting contacts from the areas, local contacts, local bikers, trying to get in touch with them so at least they can help with the logistics when you arrive.
So far, at least we managed to get all our visas. Some are going to apply on the way, like for Nigeria. So now I'm ready, looking forward to get on the road. I've not done any modifications on the bike, apart from extending my stand a bit more, my side stand. So let's hope the falling will reduce.
Pack less clothes. Yeah, because most of the time you're on your riding gear. So that's one thing I've noticed. Clothes, less clothes, medication, if you're on medication, small things, anything for the stomach, for headaches, to carry that, service kits. I think we had a puncher, we had 2 punchers in Ethiopia. So yeah, be ready for anything in terms of bike service. Then just rest well and have an open mind.
Africa is just different. Yeah, it's very different. What you think is a system here, there's a totally different system there. There's a totally different system there. So I think just to be able to prepare yourself for any eventualities, don't make any assumptions. Understand the specific nuances of Africa. I mean, they're just very different things that happen. Documents are important. Verify documents before you actually set off and be able to take off. That's another, big lesson that I've learned. But I've also learned the lesson that, God has already gone ahead of us in this trip. So just be eyes wide open to see the people that He has already placed before us, either to help us, to be able to assist us, to be able to, navigate the different terrains in Africa. But again, I think what I would say is the biggest lesson: nothing happens by accident. Nothing happens by chance. Everything that we have gone through has a sense of purpose and has had a sense of purpose. And unfortunately, you only realize the purpose afterwards, but nothing happens by accident.
The lesson I am taking is how will I be more present to ensure that I stick to the commitment of the cause for, we are looking to raise 50 million, regardless of how that goes. And that's my lesson in terms of even sitting with what is unfolding on what my next phase looks like. It's the commitment for its 50 million that we are looking to raise.